On today's World Insight, we'll talk with the Vice President of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank and how this multilateral bank is helping countries around the world build a sustainable future.
Hello and welcome to World Insight with me, Tian. For the past 9 years, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, or AIIB, has emerged as a crucial player in global infrastructure development. With over 100 member countries and economies, it reflects a commitment to building a sustainable future through investment in vital projects together. As the world tackles climate change, the AIIB is at the forefront of promoting green financing. It's not just about building roads and bridges, but also about building a sustainable future. Sir Danny Alexander, Vice President for Policy and Strategy at AIIB, who has been with the bank since its inception, has seen firsthand how it is shaping economic landscapes and driving sustainable growth. In an exclusive interview, he shed light on how the bank is setting the stage for a resilient future. He also reflected on his journey and life in Beijing. Let's listen in. Danny, what a pleasure to see you.
It's great to see you again. I think we've had many interviews since I first came to China in 2016.
We are sitting in this room, which is the AIIB boardroom.
Right.
Because at the very beginning of your work here, you work as a secretary to the board. And now, of course, you switch to strategy. But just think about it, from 0 to 1, and now leading up to 100. What this process has been for you, especially when AIIB is working on financing for the future infrastructure.
You know, I look at my staff badge. I have the staff number 18. So when I first arrived, we had more board members than staff. We had more floors in our building than we had staff. And today, you know, we have hundreds of people based in our headquarters. And, you know, the bank only works because of the really strong support of all of its member countries. You know, the UK, China, another 108 members beyond those two. And that comes through the board discussions that we have and the direction that President Jin and the management really sets for the bank. And you're right that you know, we've thought a lot about what should be the vision for the impact that AIIB wants to make in the world. We're a new bank, so we want to help our members develop infrastructure for the next few decades. So that can be quite different to what they needed in the past few decades. So we call it infrastructure for tomorrow because it's about the future. It's about the green future. It's about digital technology. It's about the private sector coming in much more to play. It's about building connections between the members. I think it's a very good concept.
Behind you, we see a whole line of flags. I know with every member, the secretary of the board, together with the team of AIIB, need to do great communication and interactions before they agree to be as part of the members of AIIB. So what was it like for you to work one by one?
I mean, more than anything else, it's a tremendous privilege and honor to have the opportunity to do that. Each of those members has joined AIIB because they're committed to the idea of having a strong multilateral institution that can support development in Asia and beyond through infrastructure investment. And so in a way, what it is about showing to them that the bank is living up to the aspirations that they have, you know, for the high standards, for the good governance, for the quality projects, for the financial soundness that enables us to do that job. And that's a constant interaction. When I first started, there were 57 founding members of the bank. When I finished my role as corporate secretary, there were more than 100. Today, it's increased further to 110. You know, in a way, the important thing is each of those members has a different and unique perspective. And our bank can never be driven by one or two members.
Yeah.
It has to be driven by building a consensus among all of the members, among all of the board directors.
I really wonder, as someone who started from the very beginning with this bank, how do you understand, digest, adjust, and also work with the very different winds throughout the years?
I mean, the world has changed a lot. You know,
so much.
Politics has changed, geopolitics has changed. There's much more disagreements, conflict, differences of opinion.
And confidence in multilateralism.
Well, I'm not sure about that. That's interesting. That's an interesting point. But I think, so what we've worked hard to do with our members is to keep their political differences as much as possible outside the bank by concentrating on what we promised to do, which is really good governance. Every member is involved in the decisions, no member dominates. Very high quality in terms of the standards, the policies, the strategies, the projects, and really focused on good quality development for our members. And all of the members buy into that vision. And actually, so I have a slightly different take on the question of multilateralism. Yes, it's harder. You're absolutely right. It's harder to make multilateral systems work. What it requires is strong institutions. And so you see, I think, that the really strong institutions in the world that bring countries together, that have a common purpose that they buy into, AIIB, IMF, World Bank, these institutions continue to flourish. They continue to have a positive impact in the world because despite all the other differences, there are issues on which that all the different countries in the world see that they need to work together on.
Yeah.
Whether it's climate change, whether it's the Sustainable Development Goals, whether it's that broader commitment to trying to lift people out of poverty, when that's getting harder because of COVID, because of the economic challenges and so forth. So it may be that the space is more limited, but in those areas where you have strong, well-functioning, high-quality institutions, like the one that we've built here, it can still work. I believe very deeply in multilateral cooperation, in the international rules-based system. AIIB is part of that system now. And we've, I think that for those people who were skeptical about AIIB at the beginning, and there were a lot of questions.
There were a lot of questions.
There were a lot of questions. Will it be high standards? Will it work with other parts of the international system? People who understand multilateral institutions don't ask those questions anymore because they can see the reality of AIIB is truly multilateral, is truly driven by the common views, interests, consensus among the members, and that we're doing exactly what we said we'd do. I remember I was in the British government, part of, with George Osborne deciding whether the UK should join AIIB or not. I'd say the performance in the first 9 years is really, at the top end, even exceeds our expectations compared to back then.
On a daily basis, how do you deal with those uncertainties? Somebody's election, a change in administration, policies change within a certain government. So there will be tremendous amount of bits and pieces you have to deal with every day, I would assume. How does that work?
I mean, I think the first thing to say is you have to stay true to your mission. And you have to stay true to, the commitments that you've made. So in the AIIB's case, those commitments are really clear. And you communicate well, then I think you can get past most of these issues.
What is the best way to communicate well?
I think you have to be very transparent. You have to be open. You have to be honest about the challenges you're facing. You have to build trust, right? So the trust between the AIIB and its members and the AIIB and its board. That's a fundamental building block.
Just sitting here, I could almost feel the ambience when all your members are sitting around and discuss issues. I'm sure there will be one or two issues that some do not understand why we need to do this, and others would say, can we postpone this, not as priority? So at those moments, how would corporate secretary, which you worked as, eventually play its role And how do you work with the president of AIIB and some of those members who have very different opinions?
Well, I can give you an example.
Please do.
So this is something I worked at in my current role. I led the work on reviewing AIIB's energy strategy. And energy issues are really important ones to do with climate change, but there are also ones where there are quite wide differences.
Yeah.
Some say no coal, some say no gas, some say no oil, some say only renewables. They all share the direction that we have to be working towards this net zero transition. And so in that case, when we started that work, there were very wide differences of opinion. Should AIB rule out coal? We've never financed any coal projects. How should we handle gas and the fact that for some developing countries, developing new gas-fired is going to be a challenge. And so that process took more than a year of talking, of engagement, of discussion, of, on the one hand, being very clear what we thought was important for AIB, that we're a green bank, that our focus is the climate transition, that we shouldn't finance coal. Coal is now something that we, as international institutions, we have to get out of. AIB's never been in it, but we have to be out of it. But as a development institution, we have to recognize that for low-income countries particularly, developing some gas power under certain conditions will continue to be important. And so you have to have a clear vision and direction, but you also have to take the time to engage with everybody, to talk about it, but also to create circumstances where they can talk to each other, where they can hear from each other. And at the end of it, we came to a consensus around AIB's energy strategy, which is very progressive, it's very forward-looking, it's very clear, but it's also very oriented towards the real development needs of AIB's clients. But that's easy an issue that could blow up. But it didn't, because we handled it in the right way. And we came to a good conclusion.
When you try to have such a big multilateral financial institution like AIIB, you need to prove yourself that you are capable of doing things.
Yes, that's true.
Which means efficiency is important, implementation important, and results important. But on the other hand, you also need to bring everybody with you, because that's where you build the trust and confidence in the members. So how does that, that chemistry work from your perspective?
So let me say one thing first. I mean, one of the great privileges for me coming here has been to spend all this time working with President Jin Liqun. He's really a visionary leader. I've learned so much from working with him. And one of the things he did from the very beginning was he set the kind of core values. He said, this bank is going to be lean, clean, and green.
I heard him said that many times on all occasions.
Everyone has heard
Everyone can remember that now.
Right. It speaks to your question. To be green is a core commitment of this bank. Clean means the high standards, zero tolerance for corruption, and so on. But lean means to be efficient. It means that the money that we have to invest is money from taxpayers in our member countries, and therefore we have to treat every penny, every cent, every yuan with great care and thought. But as you say, we also have to build the capacity of AIB to deliver for the members, for the clients, for the people who we're supporting. And so, again, that's been a process of consensus building, but also of, at every stage, being able to justify why do we need this capacity. But actually, all that said, lean doesn't mean small. Lean doesn't mean mean. Lean means whatever you choose to do, you try to do it in the most efficient way. And so AIB is a 21st century bank, which means we have the great advantage that we can build in technology from the beginning. And I think that's helped us also to be efficient. So you sit here in the boardroom, you see the chairs over here, but you also see the big screen on the other side.
Right.
So our board meets here 4 times a year, but it also meets on the screen. So we use technology to have a lot of those engagements,
to speed up the process.
To speed up the process, exactly.
Over the years, there is increasing discrepancies between, let's just say, green transformation aspirations different countries have vis-a-vis what they consider as their abilities to implement.
Right.
This is also reflecting in so many different areas of issues, in trade conflicts, in setting targets for national development, and the list goes on. So how do you see now the picture is becoming not just about inspirations and aspirations, but about realities and real relations between economies?
The amount of renewable energy being installed in the world every year is going up and up and up. Last year, more than half of that was here in China. And when you take all the Asian countries together, you look at the way India is accelerating its green transition. That's real stuff happening on the ground. That's not rhetoric. That's not. Now, the pace of and the scale of what's going on is still lags behind what's needed, but it's catching up. And that's where multilateral development banks play a role, right? Just in June, I've completed a process taking through the board a new idea for AIIB. We call it climate policy-based financing, which means we can support our members, not just financing the projects, which we already do, but we can also help to finance them to make the policy changes necessary to drive the implementation of their climate plans. For example, in order to get the scale of investment in climate-friendly development that we need, the private sector has to be mobilized. The needs are trillions of dollars per year. Governments, development banks like ours, we don't have those resources. So we've got to use them really smartly to create the conditions where the private sector can come in. And so that means not just thinking, here's a project, but saying, here's a change that a given member can make, which is going to make it easier for the private sector to come in. And so that's for the first time AIIB is getting into that area, because we see that if you combine the two things, you can do much more good.
So when you say to motivate the private sector, the relations between private sector and government policies, ever changing and evolving. So all of these are nuanced as we speak.
Fundamentally, private capital will flow where there are commercial opportunities and where the risks can be well managed. And that's where supporting countries to improve their policy environment is really important. If you can have a more secure system for contracts for power generation, then that reduces the risks. It increases the commercial returns. So that's one part of it. But the other part of it is, one of the risks of the way geopolitics is changing is that the costs of the climate transition will increase. So every member has their own national interests. They have to articulate them. There are real differences in this world between different countries, and those need to be expressed and they need to be resolved. That's a given. But we also have to think about, what are we doing in terms of these hugely important development trends? Are we making it more expensive? Are we making it slower to get to net zero? And I think that's something that policymakers around the world need to weigh up every day.
Hopefully.
In the decisions they're making. Well, they should, right? The good thing is, when I listen to the discussions in our board, when I go to the COP meetings and listen to leaders speaking there is a common agenda in respect of sustainability, transition, net zero. There is a common agenda. And it's somehow we have to find a way to stay focused on what we can do in common, whilst also quite reasonably disagreeing on other areas where we have different visions, different ideas, different values. That's fine. That's normal. But don't let it stop us doing what has to be done to save the planet from the damage that will be done if climate change is not stopped.
How do you see it's transformed over the past 9 years? What does that mean to you as someone, first of all, a new resident in the city, and then become one of the most experienced, certainly, in the international community here?
I think one of the things we've seen here is huge efforts made by the local authorities to clean up the environment here. You know, we're sitting here in the AIB headquarters looking out over the Olympic Park on a day with blue sky, and it's beautiful. And actually, so one of my hobbies is bird watching.
I heard.
So
you also got some little device on top of the building.
Right, exactly. So it turns out Beijing has one of the richest diversity of bird species of any major capital in the world because it's in one of the most important migration routes. So with a couple of colleagues and a couple of friends, we decided to do something that had never been done in Asia before, which was to try and monitor the bird migration through recording the sounds that the birds make. So we put a microphone on the roof of this building, pointing to the sky during the migration time, and we recorded the birds that were flying overhead.
So you could tell different kinds of birds, right?
So we recorded tens of thousands of birds calling, flying right over the middle of Beijing. Then this project has developed. You know, Peking University has got involved. Cornell University in the US has got involved. So now we're monitoring this migration much more broadly. There's a scientific paper that's been published by Cambridge University. And then this idea of the flyway and the importance of nature also has made AIB think about the role of nature in our thinking. So we now have this concept, we call it nature as infrastructure. You know, nature is the infrastructure of our lives in a way. So when we as human beings have some infrastructure challenge, we should think first, is there a natural way to meet this? Or can we use nature in harmony? Certainly we shouldn't damage biodiversity, but if we can improve it, all the better. And so that's a really exciting new trend, I think, that we're just really starting work at.
You are here in China for 9 years. You see common goal of foreign expats here in this city and also in this country. Are they going to like migrant birds, even leaving at times but coming back in the future? What does it take for this city, which you've been living in, and also this country to be attractive to everyone?
So I've enjoyed many aspects of living here in Beijing. I think for Beijing really to become a truly international center, which is what Beijing aspires to be, it needs to think about all of those things. The good environment, very important. That is a great success. More to do, but a great success. But also the kind of international feeling of the city. It's important that you can attract people from all over the world, not just in embassies, but more broadly, let them feel at home. AIB is a beacon for that. You know, we have more than 600 staff now from more than 60 different countries around the world. You know, coming here with their families, and we are constantly working with the local authorities to see how can we improve that environment. But I think Beijing has many qualities. You know, it's, as I mentioned, the environment already, the nature that is around this city. It's very safe place to live, especially if you're coming with families. That's important. You know, great food and so forth. So Beijing has a lot of strengths. I think that if the government really wants to develop AIB as an international city, they have to focus on those strengths, but also have the confidence to open up a little bit more, to help people to really, you know, want to come here.
Right.
You know, I think for me, living in Beijing has been a very special experience. I've learned a lot from it. As
a leading economy in the world and as a member of AIB, how do you, as the staff, observe the transformation of economy here? And how do you see that is an important factor in your work?
I mean, so the first thing to say is that I mean, AIB is investing in infrastructure projects all over
Absolutely.
Asia. And so we are focused on the high quality impact we can make, whether it's in China, India, Indonesia, Turkey, Egypt, many other members. But of course we're based here, so we observe what's going on. I mean, what I observe is that China is in the middle of an important transition, you know, in the sense that the economic model that helped China to succeed through the last 40 years is going to need to change if China wants its economy to continue to succeed in future. You know, you have a wealth of well-educated young people. You need to deploy those people in a better way. as you said, many challenges in the housing market and elsewhere. And then policies come, right? So I wouldn't want to comment on individual policies in any of our members, but I would say that because China is now, a very large economy in the world, what happens in China has a big effect. Especially for other Asian countries. I think we calculated that 1 percentage point of GDP growth in China delivers 0.3 percentage points of growth in the rest of Asia. So maybe the core point is that whether people like it or not, the global economy is interdependent. And therefore we have to hope that all of our members find the right policy mix for themselves to achieve the economic development that they need and that their people need. And the AIIB, through targeted interventions, through high quality infrastructure, through spreading the values of high standards, through pushing the policies for climate transition, can help to ensure that that development is high quality and it's environmentally sustainable. And I think if we can do that, then AIIB is making really a contribution to the global economy.
Meanwhile, we also see the rise of the Global South, quote unquote.
Yes.
And among your members, Global North and Global South, they are working hand in hand. So what is the way of having different aspirations and priorities to be linked together and be able to work with synergy? I think that's also an interesting question. How do you see the concept of Global South and make everybody to work together?
Well, I think one of the strengths of AIIB is that we have all kinds of members.
Yes.
We have developed countries, we have developing countries, we have Asian countries, we have Europeans. We have increasing membership in Africa and Latin America also. And so it's truly global in terms of the membership and the influences. But I think what's important is to say that although the perspectives are different, all of those members are committed to the same fundamentals in terms of high quality multilateral governance, in terms of real quality, in terms of the investments, the kind of core goals about supporting economic development through infrastructure investment, and especially environmentally sustainable, technology-driven development. And so I think that we have to create institutions like AIIB, and there are many existing institutions like the World Bank and the IMF where this happens extremely well, where all the countries of different backgrounds, different characteristics are working together towards these kind of common goals. And if you can articulate those common goals clearly, and you can stay true to them as you move forward, then I think that can be done.
That's my exclusive interview recently with Sir Danny Alexander, the Vice President of Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, or AIIB. And that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to know more, search World Insight or check out our YouTube channel. Follow us on X and Facebook. I'm Tian Wei on behalf of the team. Thanks for being with us.